From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, welcome to it as we dig into a brand new day post State of the Union address. What a night it was. I was there late. I have not been gone very long, and I'm back at it because it was such an important speech. Longest State of the Union ever. In fact, all three big things this hour are State of the Union. Give me three whip cracks, Brock. Go ahead. Roll them out. Attaboy. You see how that works? We're going to just break formats just a little bit today because, well, it was a short night, long evening, good evening, an optimistic evening, right? An evening where Donald Trump laid out a plan for the future, talked about success, but laid out a plan for the future. We're going to get into it, all of it today. In case you weren't up, I was. So there, we've got that going for us. All right, so this is really the way he set the tone early. He said that Americans are tired of winning, and then he brought out the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team. A remarkable moment, and it just set a positive, optimistic feeling for the entire night. Listen to this.
People are asking me, please, 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 Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore. We're not used to winning in our country. Until you came along, we're just always losing, but now we're winning too much. And I say, no, 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 you're going to win again. You're going to win big. You're going to win bigger than ever. And to prove that point, here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in.
What a remarkable moment it truly was. Connor Hellebuyck, the goalie, 41 saves, and now the recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Pretty remarkable, honestly, that the president stand there and he said, I took a vote with the team, and he said, if anybody said no, I wasn't going to give him the medal, but he got the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and Brock and I were talking about this. We'll talk about this more. Other athletes have gotten it, but usually after long careers. But what a game, what an inspiration, what an up feeling for the United States, right? But there was one strange thing, and I'll get to this later. When they were chanting USA, USA, Michigan's Rashida Tlaib, Democrat from Southeast Michigan, she wasn't chanting USA, USA, USA. She was chanting KKK, KKK, KKK. And that was the disconnect between Republicans and Democrats all night. In fact, if you want to see that clip, you can go to my social media accounts, Instagram, Facebook, or X. It's on there. You can see it for yourself. It's disappointing. Not surprising, but disappointing. Donald Trump also took time to honor his friend, the late Charlie Kirk, and he condemned political violence in all its forms. Another good thing to say. Here it is.
There has been a tremendous renewal in religion, faith, Christianity, and belief in God. Tremendous renewal. This is especially true among young people, and a big part of that had to do with my great friend, Charlie Kirk, a great guy, great man. In Charlie's memory, we must all come together to reaffirm that America is one nation under God, and we must totally reject political violence of any kind.
Yeah, Erica Kirk, his widow, recognized there. In fact, Donald Trump did that throughout the evening. He brought in key people at different points in the speech. The rescue swimmer from the Coast Guard who rescued more tthan 140 people during those terrible floods in Texas. It was an optimistic speech, but I think this, what he says here, and to me, and you could just feel this. I was in Statuary Hall, which is just off from where the speech was given. And it's where the entire Senate walks through, the Supreme Court walks through. They all walked right next to me on their way into the speech. It was a very interesting place to be. It was a privilege, and I really enjoyed being there. But this is the kind of optimism that Donald Trump is trying to instill in this nation. He's looking toward the future. He talked about his successes, and we'll get through a lot of that throughout the day today. But this is one of the more telling comments. I think this really helps sum up the mood of the entire speech. Listen.
From 1776 to today, every generation of Americans has stepped forward to defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they're really doing it for the next generation. But now it's our turn. Together we're building a nation where every child has the chance to reach higher and go further, where government answers to the people, not the powerful, and where the interests of hardworking American citizens are always our first and ultimate concern. That is the debt we owe to the heroes who came before us, and that is the promise we must keep to America for our 250th year.
So true, a chance for everybody to have a stake in it. And something else, and I spoke to Congressman Tim Burchett about this. I spoke to many members of Congress. I spoke to Byron Donalds and Tim Burchett and Mark Harris and a whole host of folks, and we'll get through as much of that as we can as well. Spoke to Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska, because they're all there and they all want to talk. And after that speech, they were all pumped up. But one thing that Tim Burchett has been focused on, I talked to him about this last night, and we'll get to that interview, I hope, before this program is over, and that is members of Congress enriching themselves, becoming wildly wealthy, going into Congress with a salary of $174,000 and leaving with 20 or 25 or $30 million in 4 or 5 years. The corruption in Congress has to stop. Here's what he said.
As we ensure that all Americans can profit from a rising stock market, let's also ensure that members of Congress cannot corruptly profit from using insider information. They stood up for that. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Did Nancy Pelosi stand up if she's here? Doubt it. Pass the Stop Insider Trading Act without delay.
Did Nancy Pelosi stand up? I doubt it. Yeah, I'm not sure she could. She's only worth $130 or $140 million. Her stock portfolio has gone up something like 10,000%. Don't you wish you were Nancy? Yeah, me either. More about this when we come back from Washington, D.C. All right, let's jump right back into it. Look, I mentioned this a moment ago when the USA hockey team came in, and the whole place is chanting USA, USA. This is a preview of how the Democrats conducted themselves during the program, those that showed up. Of course, there was a protest outside. It literally had about 100 people show up to join the Democrats. Very telling. But Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, instead of chanting USA, USA, was chanting KKK, KKK. Obviously, you can't hear her, but you can read her lips. Here it is. You know, I asked Tim Burchett about that exact thing. He said he wasn't surprised. He said, but after all, the Democrats did create the Ku Klux Klan, so why wouldn't they celebrate it? Good point, Congressman. Good point. Here's some final remarks on America's golden age. Back to the optimism. Enough of that for a moment. Let's stay with the optimism, where we're going as a country. The tone that was set last night by the president. Longest State of the Union address, I believe, ever. Longer than Bill Clinton. Yeah, he talked. The golden age. Here it is.
Because when the world needs courage, daring, vision, and inspiration, it is still turning to America. And when God needs a nation to work his miracles, he knows exactly who to ask. There is no challenge Americans cannot overcome, no frontier too vast for us to conquer, no dream too bold for us to chase, no horizon too distant for us to claim. For our destiny is written by the hand of providence, and these first 250 years were just the beginning. The golden age of America is upon us. The revolution that began in 1776 has not ended. It still continues because the flame of liberty and independence still burns in the heart of every American patriot. And our future will be bigger, better, brighter, bolder, and more glorious than ever before.
I don't know how you don't listen to that and be inspired. Bigger, brighter, bolder than ever before. Remarkable, honestly. He did tout his accomplishments, did the president? Of course he did. He had to lay the groundwork for American history like he did there, about who we are as a nation, where we go forward as a nation, and how we get there. And for all the people, we'll talk about the border here for a moment. Big accomplishment for this president. Nobody's gotten away in 9 months. Nobody released into this country in 9 months. For all the people slamming Trump as a xenophobe, he's not ashamed that our border is secure. But he unequivocally accepts any immigrant who comes here legally, as we should. Here's what he said.
After 4 years in which millions and millions of illegal aliens poured across our borders, totally unvetted and unchecked, we now have the strongest and most secure border in American history by far. In the past 9 months, 0 illegal aliens have been admitted to the United States. But we will always allow people to come in legally, people that will love our country and will work hard to maintain our country.
So true. So true. Those that come here and want to be part of this thing we call America, coming here legally, going through the process properly. It's important. Let me give you one of the examples of him calling out ordinary people in the crowd and pointing out and saying, look, these are real Americans. Trump reminded the public why we are deporting illegal aliens. He shared Elizabeth Medina's story, a 16-year-old high school cheerleader from Texas who was brutally killed by an illegal immigrant. Listen to this story.
I believe, actually. In 2023, a 16-year-old high school cheerleader named Elizabeth Medina was supposed to perform in her town's Christmas parade, but she never arrived. Her mother, Jacqueline, went home to look for her, and she found her lying dead in a bathtub, bleeding profusely after being stabbed 25 times. Elizabeth's killer was a previously arrested illegal alien who had broken in and brutally extinguished the brightest light in her family's life, violently and viciously. Her heartbroken mother is in the gallery to remind everyone in this chamber exactly why we are deporting illegal alien criminals to our country at record numbers, and we're getting them the hell out of here fast. We don't want them.
He also talked about Delilah's Law, banning illegal aliens from having commercial driver's licenses after so many Americans have been killed by those who can't even read the road signs. Here it is.
Many, if not most, illegal aliens do not speak English and cannot read even the most basic road signs as to direction, speed, danger, or location. That's why tonight I'm calling on Congress to pass what we will call the Delilah Law, barring any state from granting commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
And there you have it. Several examples of a speech that was serious, sometimes funny, patriotic, but most of all optimistic. Optimistic. It's the speech America needed. Some called it Trump's best speech ever. I'll let you be the judge of that, but I was certainly glad to be there. We'll take a break and be right back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. A couple of updates here as you look at the speech and you reflect on some of the things said. One of the things talked about, as we already just shared with you, was a shout out to Charlie Kirk and his wife Erica, and the president calling for an end to political violence in this country. Well, yesterday a judge dismissed the defense's push for the accused killer Tyler Robinson to oust the prosecution team. The judge said no. Judge Troy Graff said the court was unpersuaded that there was an appearance of bias. You see, one of the prosecution team's family members was in attendance when Charlie was murdered. And the defense tried to argue that would taint the prosecution team. The judge did not agree. I didn't expect him to agree. And then there's this, the snowball attack on New York City police officers. You've seen this video, of course. A couple were hospitalized. Throwing snowballs, of course, snowballs can have rocks in them and chunks of ice. Anyhow, a couple got hospitalized. And the mayor there, Mamdani, of course, completely downplaying it. Oh, it's not a big deal. We need respect for law enforcement in this country. New York City, you're in real trouble with this guy. Real trouble. We'll keep you updated on where those stories go as well. We have to stop allowing police officers to be openly attacked by mobs of anyone, for that matter. Many of you have struggled to lose weight. You lose it, then you gain it back. What if I told you it's not your fault? It's not points, it's not shakes or living at the gym. If it was willpower, you'd already be there. What if I told you your metabolism is the problem? It's broken. It's turned off. Well, you can find out. Go to gruberhealth.com. Book a free consultation. See if it's a good fit. My Pure Health. It's all natural. Eat real food. No exercise needed. Turn your metabolism back on naturally and learn the strategies to keep it off. My Pure Health. I've worked with them for years. I did their program in 2018. I'm glad I did. The weight never came back. It probably extended my life by a few years, honestly. If you want to find out more about eating real food, not some hocus pocus nonsense, go to gruberhealth.com. Gruberhealth.com. And we'll get you set up. You can lose weight. Coming up, Jeffrey McCall is a professor of communications, DePaul University, Greencastle, Indiana. How did he rate the speech last night? This is what he does. We'll ask him after the break on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, there was my impression of the speech, and of course, the impression from the members of Congress and the senators I spoke with immediately afterwards in Statuary Hall there. And very positive, of course, from the Republicans. Al Green came out after he got tossed out again. Didn't have a chance to speak to him. He was just there to create a ruckus, and he did. But joining me now is Jeffrey McCall, professor of communications at DePaul University, Greencastle, Indiana. An established media critic, national credentials. He's written numerous op-eds that have been published in newspapers around the country and so much more. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Nice to see you again. It's been a bit. We do this from time to time when we have a big speech like this. It's important and how it impacts America. So grade the speech for me. What are your biggest takeaways?
Well, I think generally Trump accomplished what he wanted to. It was very Trumpian. I don't think anybody's ever going to confuse Donald Trump with Ronald Reagan or John F. Kennedy as a great orator. But for Trump, I think he held it together pretty well. And he accomplished what he wanted to. I think he differentiated his administration from the Democratic Party. And I think he kind of laid out the plan for the midterms going forward because he contrasted with the Democrats. He had a heavy dose of patriotism there. And he also talked about his economic programming, which I think will be very important. And, polls show that that's a key thing on people's minds. But he kind of came off at times as an MC for an award show, which was kind of great because, all the people he's recognizing would be hard to dispute or criticize. And I think that really rhetorically fit the situation because he's really trying to establish, I think, that his administration is distinct from the Biden administration, which he pointed out several times. But also, I think he's trying to point that this is the roadmap to make America prosperous and safe going forward. And I think he accomplished what he wanted to. So I think in most regards, this was probably one of Trump's better speeches. And I think he also resisted the temptation to go ad lib, which he tends to do. And I think he stuck mostly to the script. And I think his speechwriters did a great job. One other comment I might make is it's too long because I think it's hard for people to sit still for that long. And he might have lost some of the audience that needed to hear what he had to say. Particularly, I thought his closing was quite resounding and very poetic. And I thought, that would have been good material to get earlier on. And I'm afraid probably some of the audience was gone by then. But I must say, I think that the speech accomplished what it wanted. And some of his one-liners were great. Even when he just said, "I love America," and he said, "What difference do presidents make?" And also when he said, "These people are crazy. How do you not stand?" I'm thinking those are lines people, I think, can really latch on to because when he's making an impassioned plea for the safety of Americans or economic progress, and the Democrats are sitting on their hands, it's pretty stark. And they were sitting a good part of the time for some really pretty good punchlines.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a pretty good takeaway, one of his better speeches. I did think the closing was a banger. I did. I thought his closing was inspirational. This is America. We can do great things together. Just the whole, but I believe the speech started with that when he brought out the hockey team early. It kind of set that tone of optimism and pro-America, and I thought it was a pretty good way to set the tone and then give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Connor Hellebuck, the goalie from the game that they won in the Olympics. And I want to point out something else you said. He had a chance to go off script, which he often does, and sometimes it serves him well, and sometimes it does not serve him well at all. He stayed on script because he had a chance there. He mentioned the Supreme Court. Obviously, he's not happy with the decision on tariffs here in the last few days. But he didn't go after him. He just kind of said, we'll deal with that. And then he went on to how he's going to set tariff policy going forward. That was a chance that he could have gone the wrong way and soured the speech, and he didn't do it. He resisted that, which was the discipline was pretty good on that, wasn't it?
Oh, you make a great point because clearly he's upset about that ruling. But he characterized it as unfortunate. And I got the feeling when watching the speech that he was really being tempted to just take off. But he didn't. He moved on from there. And I think rhetorically, that's great. It shows some discipline, which he's not known for necessarily. But I think it served his purposes to say, okay, it was unfortunate. You can tell he's not pleased. His public remarks earlier have already indicated that. So he doesn't need to beat that dead horse. And the fact that he kept going shows to me that Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, had warned him in advance, stay on script and do what you need to do because he's got all the makings and all the situations that he wants there. He's got the hockey team. He's got the American veterans there. He's got the victims of illegal aliens. So he's got it all going for him kind of optically, and there would have been no reason to get off track and to disrupt that because it would have stolen his own moment.
Yeah, I don't know how long you would have a better idea, Professor. I don't know how much time goes into a State of the Union address, a week, a month, 6 months. But he did stay on that optimistic tone. So even those that don't like Trump, and there are plenty, as you know, they're going to have trouble mining social media for clips that are going to make him look bad. That's their challenge, is to try. How do they take some of the stuff that was there last night, twist it into something that is negative for the president? Because there was so much optimism there, and bringing out real people, real Americans, the victims of violence, the veterans that you mentioned. It's kind of hard to argue with those people. Those are our neighbors. Those are people we know. We know people like that. So he identified with Americans that real Americans would identify with. I think that was key.
Very much key. And he kept pointing to American exceptionalism, that America is able to do things that other places can't. And when you bring out the special guests he had, they demonstrate that. And interestingly, for people who would have watched the Democratic reply from Governor Spanberger, you would have seen quite a contrast there, because she shows up and starts talking about how terrible things are and that Trump's a liar and that sort of thing. I'm thinking she kind of fell into Trump's trap, so to speak. He's optimistic for an hour and 47 minutes, and then she comes on and tries to throw cold water on what really should have been a rather an uplifting kinds of thing. And you're right, a lot of people don't agree with Trump on things, uh, but let's face it, Trump is the president. Some good things have happened. I think in retrospect, he might have spent more time talking about his economic accomplishments, because you listen to Spanberger and it sounds like the economy's a wreck. But when you really look at the fundamentals, and again, I'm not an economist, but the fundamentals seem to suggest that the economy's doing maybe pretty well and maybe poised to even do better. And for for the Republican hopes in the midterms, they better hope that some of those markers start to blossom, because they're going to need that between now and November.
Well, they certainly are, certainly for the kids that sit in classes at DePaul University, because it's that age group, 18 to 30. They're not Republicans, they're not Democrats. They're kind of willing to go wherever they think the best chance for them is. And so he got a good number of those folks in 2024. He has to hang on to them to win the midterms. Professor, good review. Always nice to see you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Greatly appreciate it. There you have it, Jeffrey McCall. He's at DePaul University. It's in Indiana, Greencastle. He's been there for a very long time, and he comes on every now and then with us. He's been a guest on this program dating back years. We bring you only the best. Coming up, what's best for you? Taking care of yourself, number one. Let's be optimistic about your future. How about we do that after the break here on The Steve Gruber Show? Just recently, you probably saw these social media posts. James Vanderbeek was a young, he's an actor, right? I wasn't real familiar with him, but he put out the most touching comments on social media. He had cancer. He knew he wasn't going to make it. He talked about the importance of his family and taking care of things that are important. And how sad, he was only 48 years old. Shocking, really. But I bring that to your attention because this is something we've been seeing for 20 years now. People under 50, colorectal cancer. And there's been a big boom in other cancers since COVID, as you know. You can't hardly look around without hearing stories about it. That's why I'm bringing in Peter Gillooly, the CEO of the Wellness Company. Peter, good to see you this morning.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
You know, the death of James Vanderbeek really kind of puts a spotlight on the fact that you've got all these people dying, 48 years old. I mean, to me, that is unbelievable that people are talking about the rising cancer rates among younger Americans. Is it true? Are we seeing higher increases of colorectal cancer in Americans under 50?
It absolutely is true, Steve. We've seen rates of colorectal cancer actually double since 1990 in both men and women. And now colorectal cancer death is the #1 cause of death for people under 50 in men, and
Wow.
the second most prevalent cause of death for women, believe it or not. And that is saying nothing for the last couple of years, where we've seen a multitude of people that were otherwise perfectly healthy come down with cancer and suddenly pass.
Some people call this turbo cancer in the shadow, because we're still in the shadow of the COVID pandemic, I would say. So why? Why do we see these cancer rates doing this right now?
Well, the mainstream media pins it on the usual stuff, diet, obesity, sedentary lifestyle. And look, all these things are true, and we know that all these things also contribute to cancer rate. They really don't explain the sharp rise in these cancer rates that we've seen. Of course, I know you and your audience are probably quite familiar. We've seen an explosion of cancer, especially after people have received the shot. I think the body's systems for fighting cancer have gone haywire once we've been vaccinated with mRNA, and that makes sense from a scientific standpoint. You're essentially injecting a foreign DNA sequence into your body, and that can cause tumors, but you're also diverting your immune system, which is the most important system that you have to fight against cancer. And if your immune system isn't looking for cancer cells in your body and fighting them, they can multiply uncontrolled.
Yeah, one of the other things that came out of COVID were intense debates about ivermectin. For me, it's what I took to get cured from COVID. It worked for me very well, very effectively in a short period of time. People have heard my story. But when drugs like that are used off-label, as they say, which is to use it for something that's not specifically created for, sometimes they find these drugs are really effective. Ivermectin, repurposed drug almost everyone's familiar with, showing some promise as a potential drug to fight cancer now as well. Tell us about that.
It's amazing, isn't it, Steve? I mean, these lower cost drugs, and I mean, you look at the cost of a course of ivermectin versus a course of chemo, and it's about 1/100th or less of the cost. Yeah. Yet it shows extremely strong, promising results. Just the other day, we had Secretary Kennedy come out and say, if it wasn't for big pharma, we would have cured Alzheimer's long ago. Isn't that a funny thing for the Secretary of HHS to say? And I believe the same may be true for cancer. I think if we had the special interests out of the way, there are a ton of drugs like ivermectin that show great effects against cancer. I'm really proud, Steve. We've had hundreds and hundreds of people that have used our ivermectin during their own cancer battle, including my own mother-in-law, who the doctors credit ivermectin specifically with keeping her alive so long. But we've been surveying them, and we're publishing a research study in a couple more weeks that actually shows that over half the people we've talked to have seen a positive effect in cancer after taking ivermectin and mebendazole. It's amazing.
Sure. I was going to ask you why there's been so little interest from the pharmaceutical industry, the medical establishment, in investigating repurposed drugs like ivermectin, but I think we know the answer. Ivermectin's cheap. 1 million doses a day or more are taken around the world. It's a cheap drug. It's been around for decades. Big pharma can't make a big profit off of it. And I hate to say, that's kind of a dark reason, but I mean, what else would there be?
Look, it's cheap, Steve. It's been around for 100 years, and we've seen therapeutics like ivermectin and even other courses of treatment like hyperbaric chambers, another thing that's very cheap, also show great promise against cancer. And I think at the end of the day, we all really need to stop and ask ourselves, if we come down with a diagnosis like this, and let's face it, right now in America, 1 in 3 people actually will get cancer during their lifetime. So it is something we all should be thinking about. What are we going to do? And I think knowing that drugs like ivermectin exist and actually mapping out the types of treatment that you're open to is important because, we just haven't seen, in my opinion, enough progress with things like chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery alone in the fight against cancer. I mean, the death rates are way too high.
Too high. In fact, one of your very own doctors, she's on here pretty regularly, Dr. Kelly Victory, had cancer. She came up with a product called Shield. Shield. Tell me about that.
Back to my point about the immune system, Steve. I mean, we all have cancer cells circulating in our body every single day. You do, I do, everybody does. But fortunately, our immune system is designed to recognize and destroy cancer cells as soon as they appear. That system does not work properly when you actually are growing a tumor because essentially the tumor sort of becomes invisible and your immune system is otherwise not able to fight it. It's too weak. It's preoccupied fighting other things. But that really underscores the fact that immune and metabolic health, which really drive your body's ability to fight cancer, are the key systems that we need to strengthen in order to protect ourselves. And that's why we invented Shield. It's specifically designed to help strengthen those two systems so that you can have the best, most fighting chance.
Peter, good talking to you today. This is so important. Shield is a product you can get from the wellness company, twc.health/Gruber. You can go there today, twc.health/Gruber. Use the promo code Gruber. You'll save 10% and give yourself a fighting chance. Peter Galuli, always a good conversation, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Find out more about Shield, twc.health/Gruber. Again, promo code Gruber, you'll save 10%. Why wouldn't you? I'll be right back. You never have to miss a minute of the program, and you can always go back and see the great interviews, the conversations, the monologues, and the topics we cover here by becoming a subscriber on YouTube. And I bring that to your attention today because another brand new episode of our podcast, Forgotten America, Ivy and I began doing this a while ago. Forgotten America, we bring you voices you're not going to hear elsewhere. And this week, they all drop Monday mornings, 9 a.m. We've got some great episodes up there for you right now. Kyle Rittenhouse, Reverend
Jordan Wells.
Jordan Wells. Thank you, Anthony. I'm a little tired. Jordan Wells. And this week, Tiffany Cianci. She has spent the last several years looking at private equity. Private equity. They're buying up your veterinary offices, the HVAC, the plumbers, the electricians. You think that they're all different companies when in fact they're all under one roof. And the problem with that is they get powerful and then they just put it to the bottom line, whatever they can get. Listen to this preview.
Everything that we would mortgage our house to keep paying for, they were going to buy. But they weren't going to buy it and say that they owned it. Instead, they created a name, image, likeness scheme that made the owners that looked like it was a small business for years turn over their name, image, and likeness for 20 years so that they could keep marketing themselves as a mom and pop while they were acquiring every business in the region and creating a micro monopoly.
A monopoly. So the example she gave is you go to the HVAC company, your furnace is broken, and they come back and say it's going to be $2,000 to fix it. You say, whoa, I'm going to call the next guy down the street. And they come back and they say it's going to be $2,000. The reason? They're all owned by the same private equity firm. Oh, and by the way, if you want to finance, that's fine. We can finance your furnace being fixed because they own the finance company as well. And there's a darker side too, much darker. People get hurt. Bad things happen, and private equity puts it into the cost of doing business. Subscribe on YouTube. Become a follower. This great episode dropping Monday morning at 9 with Reverend Jordan Wells is there. Kyle Rittenhouse is there. We're just getting started on this exploration of America. Stories you don't hear anywhere else. Private equity, did you have any idea? Running theme parks, and if kids get hurt, well, they get hurt. It's just an eye-opening conversation you've got to hear. More on the Steve Gruber Show, including more from the State of the Union, still to come.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, welcome back to it as we continue another hour here on a big, beautiful Wednesday here on the program. Still coming to you live from Washington, D.C. I was here to cover the State of the Union address, and what an address it was. 1 hour, 47 minutes by my clock. I think that's about right. Three big things this hour are all about the State of the Union address. Go ahead, give me three, Brock. There you go. Great time to be in Washington, by the way. The weather has been chilly, but sunny. It's been great. The president's speech last night, as we heard from the professor last hour, optimistic. Hitting the notes he had to hit. Had a chance to go off script, could have gone dark on the Supreme Court. He didn't. He could have gone after the Supreme Court because obviously he's upset with the decision on tariffs, but he didn't. He didn't go after the Supreme Court at all. He just kind of glided by it, didn't go off script, stayed positive. It was a real compare and contrast to the Democrats there last night. At one point he says, "Are you guys crazy?" I mean, they wouldn't stand up for anything, even great Americans. But the economy front and center as we head toward the midterms later this year. And he spent a lot of time talking about the economy, as I believed he would, and he did. He talked about inflation and so forth and how it's impacting ordinary Americans. Here's part of it.
But in 12 months, my administration has driven core inflation down to the lowest level in more than 5 years. And in the last 3 months of 2025, it was down to 1.7%. Gasoline, which reached a peak of over $6 a gallon in some states under my predecessor, it was quite honestly a disaster, is now below $2.30 a gallon in most states, and in some places, $1.99 a gallon.
Yeah, $1.99 in some places, right? Not where I am, but it's at about $2.85 last time I looked. Better than it was during Joe Biden when it was $5 there in the middle of summer of 22. And then, again, he did this 12 or 15 times during the speech last night. He would identify real Americans in the audience, real Americans that were there at his invitation. People like Megan, who he said will save $5,000 in taxes this year because of the one big beautiful bill. Listen to this.
Recently in Pennsylvania, I met Megan Hemhauser, a devoted mom who's homeschools her children, beautiful, 2 children, during the day while waiting tables at night as her husband works overtime operating very heavy equipment. Megan is here this evening and she's happy to tell you that she is so much richer because with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and her expanded child tax credit done again by Republicans, Megan and her husband will take home more than $5,000 extra just for the year, cutting her tax bill in more than half.
Yeah, it's almost $500 a month. By the way, Anthony just sent me a note. He said, actually, gas where we are just jumped over it. I had 40 cents. Why does it do that?
I got it
I want an investigation into that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got it yesterday morning before work. Lucky enough for 380 something, 270 something, 270 something.
Right.
And then I got out of work past the same gas station, 320.
Weird, isn't it? I'll never understand that. The price of oil didn't jump by a big percentage overnight, so I don't know. But the economy better off. Trump adding jobs, getting Americans off from food stamps and other welfare programs. Here's what he said about that.
As thousands of new businesses are forming in factories, plants, and laboratories are being built, we have added 70,000 new construction jobs in just a very short period of time. It's getting bigger and bigger and stronger. Nobody can believe what they're watching. American oil production is up by more than 600,000 barrels a day, and American natural gas production is at an all-time high because I kept my promise to drill, baby, drill. More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. Think about that. Any time in the history of our country, more working today. And 100% of all jobs created under my administration have been in the private sector. We cut a record number of job-killing regulations, and in 1 year we have lifted 2.4 million Americans, a record, off of food stamps.
2.4 million off from food stamps. It is a remarkable accomplishment, right? And back to the tariffs. Obviously, he's not pleased with the Supreme Court, but he still predicted the tariffs will be reenacted under Section 301 and 121. And he predicts that tariffs at some point in the future could replace income tax altogether. Wouldn't that be remarkable? Here's what he said.
Approved. And as time goes by, I believe the tariffs paid for by foreign countries will, like in the past, substantially replace the modern-day system of income tax, taking a great financial burden off the people that I love.
Yeah. You know, Democrats, by contrast, they didn't applaud for much. They sat on their hands. They didn't even applaud for a lot of the ordinary Americans, real Americans, people that aren't neighbors, people that we would know, right? They didn't pay attention to them. But they did applaud themselves at one point, did the Democrats, talking about taxes and the average American trying to make it every day. They voted against the one big beautiful bill, and they gave themselves a big round of applause for it. It's remarkable. Here it is.
All Democrats, every single one of them, voted against these really important and very necessary massive tax cuts. They wanted large-scale tax increases to hurt the people instead.
Yeah, they gave themselves a big round of applause for not cutting your taxes. They gave themselves a big round of applause for not worrying about your affordability each month. They gave themselves a big round of applause for sticking their finger in the eye of average Americans like you. Very telling. Again, last night was a compare and contrast. It was a compare and contrast, a positive vision about America, Americans' exceptionalism in history and on the world stage and going forward, a roadmap to where we go from here, compared to the Democrats, with Rashida Tlaib chanting KKK instead of USA and applauding themselves for not cutting your taxes. Now, there will be a real choice in November, that's for sure. And my friends, I would say this: we cannot go back. Can't. Make sure you follow me on all the social media sites. YouTube, a great place to watch the program live every day for 3 hours. Become a subscriber. Get a chance to see every new episode of Forgotten America that drops Monday mornings at 9. Become a subscriber on YouTube. You'll be glad you did. This is The Steve Gruber Show. You've heard the statistic, we all have. 22 veterans take their lives every day, and it's been stagnant at that point for a long time. There's been awareness, there's been conversations, there's been more assistance put out there, and yet that number remains pretty close to the same. Well, my next guest took the last 14 years to look at these stories. Then he wrote a screenplay and created the movie Sheepdog. Stephen Graham is the writer, the director. He's also in the film Sheepdog. Stephen, welcome to the program.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
And in the break, you said you owed it to the people that have served this country, that have put on the uniform, the men and the women that stand post for us every day, including today. But suicide rates still stagnant. Tell me about Sheepdog. Tell me about this project.
Sure. So, Sheepdog was, 14 years to get to the screen. In 2011, my car broke down 3 hours north of Los Angeles, and the local tow truck driver who picked me up on that 3 hour journey and back to my home had began to open up about, all the challenges in his life, his marriage, being the father of three, his financial hardship, and then he began to open up about all the different medications that he was on that were tethered to his traumatic brain injury and his post-traumatic stress from his surgery. And throughout this conversation, I don't think I said three words, and he just kept saying to me, "I can't believe I'm telling you this. I've never told my wife, a therapist, anybody." And when I got back to LA, I thanked him for getting me home safely, and that was the seminal moment. I couldn't believe that this man who'd served his country honorably was so disconnected from his community, from his family, from his battle buddies. And that summer of 2011, I set out on a nationwide road trip to try to uncover the truth, to see if there was more men and women like this tow truck driver who were suffering in silence. And I learned very quickly that indeed there were many more, and that became the foundation for Sheepdog.
What a story. What an incredible revelation you had that day in that cab of that truck. Remarkable, really. So you set out across the country. 14 years later, here's the film Sheepdog. It's a drama. It's not a documentary. I want to be clear about that. This is a scripted drama. What will people see?
Yeah, so this is as very close to the bone and raw as a film can get. It was made entirely outside of the Hollywood system. I was forced to. And so you're going to see a very honest and authentic portrayal of our veterans, our mental health workers, veterans of all generations and conflicts, and truly what it takes to get on the other side of post-traumatic stress to a path of post-traumatic growth.
To get on the other side, and still here we are, as I talked about, 22 suicides on average every single day from people that have served this country for a variety of reasons: depression, the medications, whatever it might be, disconnection from their community, all these things you've discussed. How do we do better? I mean, we've tried so many different things, but how do we actually move the needle?
Okay, well, that's a very fair question and something that I've been working on for more than a decade. I'd say the first step right now is that there are roughly 5 to 7 million veterans that currently have not accessed their VA care. Not every veteran has trauma. Not every veteran has been deployed or been in conflict. But we've seen that the rates, I believe, are about 60% of those that haven't accessed their care fall into the suicide rate. I'm encouraging folks that have not accessed that care that at the very first step, it will connect you to a community. These are benefits that you've earned. That would be the first step. The second step is, we often see this disconnect between our civilian community and our military community. I understand that, for a lot of civilians to go up to a veteran or someone, men and women in uniform, say at an airport, and say, "Thank you for your service." We're trying to encourage folks to do, because we often hear it so much from veterans, is I understand, thank me for my service, but ask me how I'm doing. Ask me something about my service. Creating that bridge that we have, that this gap that we have between these two communities. I also think it's access to care beyond that. You know, currently the younger generation, you know, that are not going to DFW or say the American Legion to connect with other veterans who might have walked a mile in their shoes, and they might be on, you know, the substitute for that these days could be like a Facebook group. It's trying to connect veterans with other veterans, and to feel a sense of community, and rather than the disconnect. And these are just some of the small steps in the beginning of this process. You know, when that staggering number came out, 22 veteran suicides a day, that came out in 2012. And that's something that on this project and on Sheepdog and film that we address. This is not a post-traumatic stress movie. This is a post-traumatic growth movie. Our hope is to educate, certainly to entertain, but to inspire.
Yeah. Do you think that they don't come out because they're embarrassed or they're private or they're proud? Last word to you.
Yeah, that's very fair. So, look, I married into a military family. Both of my brother-in-laws are combat veterans. You know, one of which was very hesitant to access his care. He felt like it was welfare. He felt it he didn't need it. And I'm glad that he did access it. And yeah, there's definitely a sense of pride. What we're trying to say with this film, and what you know, I'm only expressing what I've seen in 14 years, because I've
Right.
seen is that you matter, and that it's okay to not be okay, and that so many get your commitment to service and sacrifice. So thank you. I hope everyone sees Sheepdog. You can see it in the privacy and comfort of your home right now.
How do they find it real quick?
You got it. Amazon Prime, Apple, Comcast, Spectrum, anywhere you can watch a movie, we are there. And we hope that we're able to make the difference that the film we've seen has continued to do from all across the country. All the veterans that have been reaching out to us, Gold Star family members. Steve, it's been profound and it's humbling, and we're so grateful. And so, we hope more folks can see the film.
Stephen Graham, thank you very much. The movie is Sheepdog. Go find it. Well, the numbers are still coming in from all of that violence involving the drug cartels in Mexico. CJNG and the death of El Mencho. The drug kingpin killed by Mexican military officials and soldiers, along with the help of American intelligence. And it created total chaos. More than 24 National Guard members from Mexico killed. Several other civilians killed. 30 cartel members killed. I mean, this was a war in the streets in several different parts of Mexico. Yeah, best ever, right? And it was a real war in the streets. It shows that the cartels are running Mexico and the government is not. Well, now Americans are being told, because the Guadalajara airport and other places are closed, they need to just get in their car and drive north, get the hell out of there. That's the advice coming from the State Department. So we'll see how that plays out. But that is the recommendation currently. We'll see what happens. Did you know that your house can be targeted by criminals? Homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity. Cyber criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. Your house alarm, your doorbell camera, your deadbolt, it's not going to do anything against these folks. They don't want your TV, they want your equity. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer the title of your home into their name using some documents down at the county. And the scariest part is you won't even know that they've stolen it until you start getting collection notices because they took loans against your property. They sold your property potentially. The best way to protect your equity is with triple lock protection from my good friends at Home Title Lock. Triple lock protection, 24/7 monitoring of any changes. If God forbid the worst happens, restoration services, no out-of-pocket cost to you. They'll spend up to $1 million to make sure your home's title is in your name. Here's what you do. Go to HometitleLock.com. Use that promo code Gruber. HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. You'll get a free title history report and a 14-day free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. You want to do this, all right? HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. I'll be right back. Well, we get to hear a lot of different voices on this program. My next guest is a former attorney, former criminal trial attorney. He's also a former convicted and incarcerated felon himself. And he advises the Trump administration on criminal justice reform. John Kufos is here. John, nice to see you again.
Good to be with you again, sir.
All right, so you say healthy prisons mean healthy communities. What do you, because look, most people are like, hey, they're in prison, I don't care, it doesn't matter. What do you mean by healthy prisons, healthy communities?
Great question. So first thing we have to remember is a threshold public safety point. 95% of everybody locked up right now is coming out one day, right? They're all coming out, right? Except for the 5%. And this is all across in your toughest on crime states and your softest on crime states. So the idea here is we realized that we needed to make prisons both better for guards and officers and better for public safety. So part of the problem is healthcare. And when I say healthcare, I mean correctional health, the addiction treatment that we desperately need these people to get when they're behind the wall. And then, of course, the food situation in prison is something that in other countries and other places they've solved. And studies from all around the world have shown that when better food, not ultra processed food, is put behind the wall, incidents of staff violence to staff, inmate to staff violence, inmate to inmate violence drops 50, 60%. So in June of 2025, I reached out to Secretary Kennedy with a team of law enforcement leaders from the Correctional Leaders Association, and we put together a project really to take Maha behind the wall to push public safety.
I saw the secretary last night for a moment. Was he receptive? Was his team receptive? Are they open to this Make America Healthy Again, even in prison?
Oh, certainly. So when we launched the project, we launched it with about 300 current and former law enforcement leaders at the U.S. Capitol. I introduced Secretary Kennedy to keynote that launch in June of 2025. And about 2 weeks ago, we were just with the secretary and his senior team again. And what we're going to be doing this year is, again, as we said, taking Maha behind the wall, but for public safety. And this dovetails right with President Trump's public safety agenda. I like to call it the public safety agenda more than a criminal justice reform agenda, because that's what it is. Trump has always done smart on crime policies. And it also dovetails with the Great American Recovery Initiative, which is the president's executive order on expanding addiction treatment, behavioral health for appropriate people behind the wall. So as you put these things together, the same principles on why we need to, why today's ultra processed food are causing behavioral issues or violence issues, that applies across the board. We also have a critical correctional officer staffing shortage in this country, top to bottom. Almost every state is dealing with this. And part of the reason is because the toughest job with the toughest people behind the wall, right? Everybody in there.
Yeah.
Put it this way. That's the toughest neighborhood in America to work a prison unit. And we don't give enough to our heroes behind the wall to do what they need to do. So by making little changes like food, like better healthcare, like better addiction treatment, their lives become not just easier, but safer. We can also then dedicate to appropriate offenders that we know are going to be released, that they get the programming they need to not reoffend. So it's a holistic public safety look more than a food situation. I'll tell you something else. When you think about some of the spend per day in prisons, you're talking like $1 a day per inmate trying to feed folks. Now, again, we're not asking for people to eat at Tavern on the Green here, right? We're not asking, for that kind of, or Le Grand Boucherie in DC type food here. We're talking about food that conforms to the new dietary guidelines for Americans, because that's going to have a hidden public safety benefit for America.
It's interesting that you have this conversation, because here in Michigan, I see them advertising, the state advertising constantly for more guards to work at the prisons and correctional facilities in the state of Michigan. I'm guessing that's true across the country. These states are begging for people to take these jobs. They're pretty good paying jobs, but they're not for everyone. But we have a shortage. It's pretty serious, isn't it?
It's critically serious. And in fact, in some states, you have the National Guard patrolling the unit. New York State they had to bring in the National Guard because they had no officers. And the problem is that what we're doing is, if we don't properly staff and treat our officers behind the wall well and make the job as appealing as possible for them, they're not going to serve, right? They're going to go and work in something else, private sector, police departments, etc. And we're not going to have them. And if we don't have them, the prison's going to be more inherently dangerous. And that 95% that's coming out are going to be more dangerous too. So if we want to solve this, we have to treat our officers the right way.
John, it makes me think about in the military, the best food by far, and everybody knows it, is on submarines. You have to offer people incentives to go underwater for a long period of time. Maybe that's part of the incentive to get people to take the job, to put on the uniform, to look after the worst of the worst inside these prison walls. Maybe I think you're onto something here.
Yeah, we're really lucky that Secretary Kennedy is really excited about this. Secretary Rollins also very excited about the farm tie-in. There's a lot of verticals there as well, right? As we think about empowering America's farmers. If you look at Maine, the Maine Department of Correction does something really exciting. Vice News did a 6-minute a little docu-short on it. And they literally have a farm to prison situation there. When you talk to the commissioner there, Randall Liberty, best name in corrections, by the way, when you talk to Commissioner Liberty, you find out that he had about 3 or 4 inmate to staff violence incidents this year. Before he did the food situation, it was like 80 or 90. And that's in a small system like Maine.
Right.
So think about what can happen in some of our larger systems.
So how do you take it from concept to reality? How do you get there? You got Secretary Kennedy on board. You've got Secretary Rollins on board. How do you get it across the finish line?
Yeah, so the great news is that correctional directors, these secretaries of state corrections, have been lining up to showcase what they think is a good proof of concept in conformance with the dietary guidelines of America. And many are looking to change their contracts when their contracts are up. We've also gotten a tremendous response from law enforcement around the country and the correctional vendors that provide food. So thanks to the Correctional Leaders Association, which is a trade group, or the advocacy group, excuse me, for all the correctional secretaries in America, thanks to their leadership, I mean, we expect to have concepts rolled out this year. We might even take some of these secretaries on some tours. And I think that one of the other places of leadership here has been Billy Marshall and Josh Smith. They're the number 1 and 2 in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, right? Billy Marshall and Josh Smith have been tackling this issue federally for since they took office, a year and a half ago. So we really have leadership at all levels right now. And I think what we're going to do is we need to make the prison environment safer for all, but we certainly need to make it safer for those who put their lives on the line to patrol these units. And if we can change healthcare to do that, and the net effect downstream are safer communities, that's a smart thing to do.
It's a smart thing to do. John Kufos, really good of you to be here and lay out this plan and way to think about new ways to solve old problems. John, thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Greatly appreciate it. There you go. What do you think about that? You can always send me an email, stevegruber.com. stevegruber.com is the place to go and send me an email. What do you think about this or anything else we're doing? Again, don't forget to go to YouTube. Become a subscriber. You can get the newest episode of Forgotten America, the podcast with me and Ivy. We're talking about really important things going on in your community and how private equity is buying up the companies around you and turning mom and pops into something else. I'll be right back.
I'm Shanola Ham.
Yeah, if you're on the East Coast, of course, the State of the Union ran long. 1 hour, 47 minutes is what I've got it at. 1 hour, 47 minutes. And I found it to be an optimistic speech where Donald Trump stayed on script, talked about the important past of America, 1776, the 250th supercentennial. And to me, it was a very positive speech. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Listen to this.
From 1776 to today, every generation of Americans has stepped forward to defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they're really doing it for the next generation. But now it's our turn. Together, we're building a nation where every child has the chance to reach higher and go further, where government answers to the people, not the powerful, and where the interests of hardworking American citizens are always our first and ultimate concern. That is the debt we owe to the heroes who came before us, and that is the promise we must keep to America for our 250th year.
Yeah. So that's one side of it, right? That's one side of it. So here's, I saw this, I couldn't believe it. These college kids are asked about the State of the Union, what they thought about it, how they would rate the State of the Union address, right? They didn't like it. They scored it terribly. The catch is this. They were asked on Monday, before the president had even given his State of the Union address. This shows you how indoctrinated too many people are in this country, not just young people. This is an easy example, but people in general. Oh, it was just terrible. I didn't like it. Whatever. Listen to this.
The only problem? It's tomorrow. Rate Trump's State of the Union speech 1 out of 10. 1's the worst, 10's the best. Negatives. And why? I think we all know a lot of reasons. Yeah. What about the State of the Union last night? 1 to 10.
It was like a 1 or 2. I mean, it was all over the place.
Probably just giving a 0.
Gonna give it a 1. And why do you say 1?
I don't think he's very articulate.
How did Trump do at the State of the Union?
0. I'll be real, I didn't watch it.
I didn't really watch it much. I watched it for a little bit, but turned it off.
The State of the Union last night. How was that? 1 to 10.
No, it was last night. I thought it was tomorrow.
No, you're good. You passed the test. Good job.
One person. The other girl actually said, I only watched a little bit of it. You didn't watch any of it, but you've got your feelings and your whole thing put together. Let's go to bite 16. This is where Donald Trump really, this is one of the better moments last night, talking about the Democrats, talking about who they are, what they stand for, what they don't stand for, right? And I think it's really telling. Listen to this.
These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy. Amazing, incredible. Boy, oh
just
boy.
Crazy.
We're lucky we have a country. With people like this, Democrats are destroying our country, but we've stopped it just in the nick of time, didn't we? Huh?
Just in the nick of time. I love it. These people are crazy. They want open borders. They want to, dismember people. I saw Chloe Cole last night, a detransitioner. Been on this program before, talked to her for a bit. It's just remarkable. It is that they believe the things that they believe. Let's go to bite 17. Democrats refusing to stand for protecting American citizens, you and I, over those people they let through on that open border. Here's another example of what the Democrats did last night.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
Yep. As you saw, they just sat there. I think John Fetterman might have stood up there. By the way, John Fetterman, as a side note, wore a very nice suit last night out of respect for the State of the Union address. Think about that. With Rashida Tlaib in the crowd chanting KKK instead of USA, which I showed you earlier, John Fetterman. Now, who would have thought, honestly, go back a couple of years, John Fetterman had a stroke, was very challenged to get through the election in the state of Pennsylvania. Who would have thought that John Fetterman, a guy with an actual traumatic brain injury, would end up being the voice of reason for the Democrat Party? What's left of it, that is. I recently heard somebody say that AOC and that ilk should go create their own political party because they're not Democrats. Go create a political party on whatever it is you are. But I applaud John Fetterman. I don't always agree with him. I don't, but I appreciate the fact that he tells you where he stands and why. And he stands with America, and he stands with a closed border. And he stands with deporting those that are here that are criminals. I think he's like the only guy on the Democrat side of the aisle that says, look, we've got American law. The guy that stands with federal law enforcement says, look, this is America. We have laws for a reason. Anyhow, nice to see him in a suit last night. Usually he's in a hoodie and shorts, but not last night. No, sir. He showed up in a nice suit, and I applaud him for that. I do. Good man. Coming up after the break, we'll have Brock Palmbush and sports. I'll be right back. All right, time to check in with my good friend Brock Palmbush with sports.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. There were 11 games in the NBA last night. Winners included Philadelphia, Cleveland, Dallas, and Minnesota. In men's college basketball, number 1 Duke, number 2 Arizona, and number 3 Michigan all won, as did number 21 Miami of Ohio, the lone unbeaten team left in men's college basketball. No top 25 games in women's basketball, but Arizona beat Houston 75-67, and Utah squeaked by Colorado 67-64. In spring training baseball, American League winners included Baltimore, Tampa Bay, and the Chicago White Sox. National League winners included Washington, Atlanta, and the Chicago Cubs. And President Trump announced last night during the State of the Union address in Washington, D.C., that U.S. goalie Connor Hellebuyck will receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor. Hellebuyck led the United States to a gold medal victory over Canada this past Sunday. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you, Brock. What do you make of that, the Presidential Medal of Freedom to the goalie?
I'm surprised by that, only because usually when it's been given to sports figures, it's usually for a career's worth of greatness. Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, John Wooden, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, people like that. You know, they were given theirs, you know, later on in their careers, so to speak. Connor Hellebuck's pretty much in the prime of his career right now. He's won 3 Vezina trophies as the best goalie in the National Hockey League, and now he's led the United States to an Olympic gold medal. But, you know, I don't have a huge problem with it. I'm still surprised by it because, you know, I would have waited until later in his career, but you know what? When President Trump has the right to do that, so okay.
Yeah, timing. You know, what better time to do it? The place went wild.
Yeah. I don't know if Michael Ruzioni ever got the Presidential Medal of Freedom. If anybody deserved it from U.S. hockey, it's him.
You've seen the movie Miracle, right?
Yes, there were actually 2 movies made about the Miracle on Ice.
Yeah, but the movie Miracle. Who was the last guy cut from the team?
A guy named Jack Hughes.
Hughes.
Not this Jack
remarkable.
Hughes, but
I understand that. That Jack Hughes was born in the 1950s, I believe.
Yep.
But that's the scene in the movie where they cross out Jack Hughes, and then 46 years later, he's the hero. Kind of crazy, right? Anyhow, thank you, Brock. We'll take a break. We'll be back with another hour of the Steve Gruber Show.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
And a special edition fighting for you from the Foxhole of Freedom today, coming to you from Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. Glad to have you here with me. Hope you're doing well. A lot to talk about this hour as we talk about the State of the Union address. That'll be the big three. All three. Go ahead and snap it, Brock, 3 times. I think he enjoys that more than I do. I'm going to just be honest with you. I think he enjoys that more than I do.
No, I think Ivy enjoys that more than both of us.
Well, then, we'll speak to her about that a little bit later. All right, so the State of the Union address, Statuary Hall, it was interesting because I was in places in the Capitol last night I've not been before. And because you get special credentials, I had to go get a new pass. Look, I have a hard pass for the White House and for the Pentagon and now for all areas of Congress. And so it was interesting to see places in the Capitol. It's such a historic building. And to be there for the State of the Union is just something very special to me. And I really quite enjoyed it. It was an experience that I will remember and hopefully do again. It was an uplifting speech from where I stood. The president stayed on course, on message. He started, of course, with the United States hockey team and celebrating them. And in fact, I'll play that. In fact, I want to change that. Let's start with bite number 1, Anthony. For anybody that missed it, when Donald Trump, because this was very early, first few minutes, he brought in the United States hockey team, the gold medal team that won in overtime against Canada here just a few days ago. And it really set the tone for an optimistic night for the president. Listen.
People are asking me, please, 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 Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore. We're not used to winning in our country. Until you came along, we're just always losing, but now we're winning too much. And I say, no, 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 you're going to win again. You're going to win big. You're going to win bigger than ever. And to prove that point, here with us tonight is a group of winners who just made the entire nation proud. The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team. Come on in.
And that was a special moment, but it also defined the Democrats for the night because Michigan's own Rashida Tlaib sat there chanting KKK, not USA. It just, it's embarrassing. I played that earlier. I'm not going to play it again. I'm not going to give her any more press. I don't think she deserves it, to be honest with you. I want to say with the optimism from the evening, summing it up, because it was a look back at America, where we've come from, but more importantly, where we are going and what it means for all Americans. Listen to this.
From 1776 to today, every generation of Americans has stepped forward to defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And they're really doing it for the next generation. But now it's our turn. Together we're building a nation where every child has the chance to reach higher and go further, where government answers to the people, not the powerful, and where the interests of hardworking American citizens are always our first and ultimate concern. That is the debt we owe to the heroes who came before us, and that is the promise we must keep to America for our 250th year.
To me, it was the right tone, certainly. And the president struck a really optimistic tone throughout his speech. And he brought in a number of different people to talk about throughout the evening. The hockey team first, and a whole host of ordinary Americans as well. He also focused on some Americans that are not with us anymore, like Elizabeth Medina, whose mother was in attendance because her daughter died at the hands of an illegal alien. The president talked a lot about the border, which you would expect, and securing the border, which he said you could do easily. When he ran for re-election, he was right. He's been able to accomplish that. Listen to this.
Believe actually. In 2023, a 16-year-old high school cheerleader named Elizabeth Medina was supposed to perform in her town's Christmas parade, but she never arrived. Her mother, Jacqueline, went home to look for her, and she found her lying dead in a bathtub, bleeding profusely after being stabbed 25 times. Elizabeth's killer was a previously arrested illegal alien who had broken in and brutally extinguished the brightest light in her family's life, violently and viciously. Her heartbroken mother is in the gallery to remind everyone in this chamber exactly why we are deporting illegal alien criminals to our country at record numbers, and we're getting them the hell out of here fast. We don't want them.
Get them the hell out of here fast. We don't want them. Another example of somebody in the audience, Megan, a woman who's an ordinary American, right? An ordinary American who's going to save $5,000 in taxes this year because of the one big beautiful bill. The economy, a big cornerstone of the speech last night. Here's that.
Recently in Pennsylvania, I met Megan Hemhauser, a devoted mom who's homeschools her children, beautiful, 2 children, during the day while waiting tables at night as her husband works overtime operating very heavy equipment. Megan is here this evening, and she's happy to tell you that she is so much richer because with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and our expanded child tax credit done again by Republicans, Megan and her husband will take home more than $5,000 extra just for the year, cutting her tax bill in more than half.
He does love the big stage, doesn't he? He does. Loves the big stage. 1 hour and 47 minutes. Longest State of the Union address that I think has ever been delivered. And it was optimistic. It was forward-looking. It was saying, hey, we need to look forward and make sure we take care of everybody. That means securing the border. That means economic opportunity for all generations. It means making sure that people are safe in their homes. So local law enforcement. I found it to be inspirational. I did. I'm sure that the people on the left that didn't even attend have all sorts of vile things to say, but then again, what else do they say? Look, this is a great country. Best country ever. It's worth fighting for. That's why we're here every day, fighting for you, even on 3 hours of sleep. Hey, somebody's got to do it. All right, when we come back, Ron Rademacher will be here fighting for you to have a good time this weekend. I'll be right back. All right, it's that time of the day, that time of the week when we say, hey, pretty good place to be, this thing we call Michigan, even though I'm in the nation's capital. But I still love my home state, as does my next guest, Ron Rademacher. Everybody, here he is. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. That's what we like right there.
Attaboy.
You're operating on 3 hours of sleep. Is that what I heard you say?
Roughly, yeah. Just a skosh over, yeah. Man, I didn't leave the Capitol until like after midnight, right? Because look, I love the speech, but it was a little on the long side.
The boys up in NAMA would say to you, "Suck it up, Buttercup."
Yeah, they sure would. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Fish
exactly
biting. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. Enough is enough already. Hey, so we got a couple of shout outs. Of course, one. This just came across. I think you sent this to me about the Brick Bash down there in Ann Arbor. Our buddies from Real Legit Customs sent this one in. Dwayne Collett. They're having this is a Lego building event, which I didn't even know they had them. Everybody from 120 miles around is going to be there. 5,000 people, something like that. All 80 different booths set up. Everybody building stuff out of Legos. Just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, he sent that to me. I said, that sounds like something Ron would talk about. Yeah. You know, when I was a kid, you had Lego, right? And just squares, and you had a box of them, and you're always digging for the one part you couldn't find that you knew was there, and it took you an hour. Now they build like spaceships and things. You know, we didn't build spaceships and stuff. We built it with our imagination. It was a spaceship, but it was a little square.
Yeah, I saw the pictures, and in my day, we didn't have Legos. They hadn't, plastic hadn't even been invented yet, I don't think. So we had little wooden blocks that we would carve out, and you'd build a little castle, a little wall, and your little brother would build his, and then you'd make a catapult and blow his down. That was our Lego thing back in the day.
Yeah, typical sibling rivalry. Yeah, nice cabin. Obliterated. Then he goes crying to mom. Mom!
Another shout out to the. We had a really good group showed up at the Tamarack Library in Lakeview for my Oddities and Rarities program last night, and in spite of the weather, and then but they started applauding as I was getting toward the end because everybody wanted to get home to see the State of the Union speech.
Right. So which one were you?
In spite of those two.
Which one were you? Odd or rare?
I was the odd. Thank you very much.
People wanted to know.
Yeah, as if you didn't know. Yeah. So that was going on. We got a lot of cool stuff. Hey, listen, we got two events coming up right away that both feature women. One of them is at the Kalamazoo at the Air Zoo. The Society of Women Engineers has their 13th annual engineering challenge, where groups of women come and they compete with local companies on engineering competitions. So, Kathy here, she was a steam fitter welder, my companion. So this is a big one with her. The women are going to be showing the men how to get it done. The other event.
I like that.
Yeah. I wish I could get down there to see that. The other event is in Detroit, and it's the 73rd annual Detroit-orama, the big car show with the hot rods and trucks and the muscle cars. And they're having the Miss Autorama pinup contest. So there's your spectrum.
So my kid, who's 13, he would love that car show. He is so into cars. I mean, of course, here's something else we didn't have as kids. They got these video games where you can, you got to earn points and then you can buy a nicer car. And I see him up there. Should I buy the Maserati? Should I buy the Porsche? I'm like, it's a different world, Ron. We had to imagine such things.
Yeah, we did have to imagine those things. So those things are going on. We do have some spring things going on as well.
Spring.
The place is having spring. Yeah, they say it's right around the corner. That road.
You know something I don't. I just looked at the forecast, Ron. Spring isn't around the corner. It's around the next bend, which is a ways down the road. Anyhow, go on.
Well, no, I'm up around the bend myself. I can see it coming. But Tipton is having their spring flower show in the Hidden Lake Gardens. And the West Michigan Home and Garden show is in Grand Rapids. Now, ice. We don't want to forget about it is winter, so you can go to Hartwick Pine railing for the snowshoe hike at night. Cadillac is having a women's ice fishing tournament and schools. So just be careful if you're going to go. There could be ice out conditions. It is cold, but people are falling through the ice already. So if you're going to go to one of those events, and the one I wish I could get to, I'm not going to be able to get there, up in Seney, which is a little ways up north, even north of Nema, they're having the largest snowmobile veterans ride in the United States. Veterans and military active members ride free. So that's what's going on around the state. I will have a report for you later. I will be talking to my buzzy Jersey Dan, who has the most advanced case of TDS of anyone I know. We're close friends. We speak 2 or 3 times a week minimum, and I'm going to get his take on the union. I mean, it's going to be just great listening to him, getting his take on it, because he will give me an earful, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. All right, so here we should do a pool. You're talking about the ice out and so forth, and be careful out there, folks, please. But we should do a pool over under. We pick a date on the calendar, a before or after date, on the first time we get a report of some clowns floating around on a chunk of ice in Saginaw Bay, because the fishing was great, but then they've got to be rescued by it happens every year. The Coast Guard has to come out and pluck them off the ice. It's just a matter of time before I do that story.
Absolutely, and I think it's already on Kalshi. I think they've already got that up on Kalshi. You can when the ice flow in Lake Erie, we'll have 100 guys floating across Lake Erie. Yeah. So we should.
Good Lord.
And it'll probably happen the weekend after that we go and have that curling event.
Yeah, which is coming up.
Yes, coming up. Absolutely.
All right. MichiganBackroads.com, MichiganBackroads.com, MichiganBackroads.com. If you have an event, a place, something you want to circle, like a Lego event, send me an email.
Let us know. Send me an email. We will talk about it. That's great stuff. I'm glad those guys sent it. Thank you, Dwayne.
It is. Thank you, Ron.
Great fishing lures those guys make.
So Anthony was asking me on the break, did I meet the hockey players? I did not. Man, there's some cool videos, though. You can check it on my social media. I put it up. When they arrived at the White House and had a chance just to walk around and look, and they're in different parts of the White House. And, of course, a big event last night. I didn't meet any of them, Anthony. I'm sorry to disappoint you. But I don't know how they snuck them in and out. I don't know where they were. Because where I stood last night, this is interesting, in Statuary Hall, you've got, and I took a bunch of pictures, but you've got massive amounts of press on either side. Then you've got a hall, right? But it's roped off, velvet ropes. And you saw everybody you knew. You saw the members of the cabinet. You saw senators, Republicans, Democrats. You saw other members of the administration. They're all within 2 feet of me, right? It's always interesting to say, hey, there's a senator I've never seen before. Dick Durbin, for example, from Illinois. I didn't realize he was 4.5 feet tall, but now I know. You see, now I know that he's a midget, or a little person, if you prefer. And then Tom Cotton from Louisiana. He's about 18 feet tall and about as big around as a number 2 pencil. I'm thinking, man, he is a tall human being. So it's interesting. No hockey players for me, Anthony. Sorry to disappoint you.
Well, that was disappointing. I was hoping you'd meet some of them.
Well, I would like to have. And you just said in the break there, Brock, that they weren't all there. I didn't realize that. I thought they were all there. Why were they not all there?
There were like 3 or 4 of them that either couldn't make it or decided not to go. You know, the NHL resumes their season tonight, and maybe they had to get back to their teams. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. If I win a gold medal, and I'm thinking about being in the Olympics next time around, Brock, if I win a gold medal when I participate in curling, of course, next time around.
Yes, that would be the sport I would be into. Yes.
Absolutely. I will absolutely take the invitation to the State of the Union if I win a gold medal. And, you know, I mean, you don't turn that down. By the way, he did say, Donald Trump, there was some confusion about whether the women's team would come or not. He said they are invited and will come to the White House. We'll see if that happens. I don't know. Set politics aside.
Everyone's all up in arms about the women's hockey team stuff. I don't really get it.
I don't get it either. Just repeat after me. God bless America. It's not that hard. All right, another look back at the speech from our friend Professor Aaron Call, Director of Debate at the University of Michigan. He's joining me now to give his take on the speech. Aaron, good to have you back on the program.
Great to be back with you.
All right, so look, Donald Trump stayed on script for an hour and 40 minutes or more, a very long speech, maybe the longest ever. and he talked about optimism. He had chances to go off script. The Supreme Court comes to mind, but instead he just kind of gave, basically, I'm disappointed in your ruling, and moved on to talk about how he's going to solve the tariff issue in other ways. So he didn't deviate. He didn't sour the speech. He started with a hockey team and brought this sense of, optimism. That was the takeaway for a lot of people I've spoken to. What were your impressions, and how would you score this speech?
Yeah, I think that certainly the winning the hockey game on Sunday was good timing, and they came after the Supreme Court decision with the tariffs on Friday. So it's kind of interesting how that works out. And I'm sure he spent a good part of the weekend working with the speech team to make those final changes. But yes, if I were kind of coaching him in the speech or part of that team, I think he'd be happy that he didn't deviate much at all. I think maybe the one time was on the issue of immigration, and that is probably going to end up being helpful. So no, it's very, very disciplined, pretty typical State of the Union address where you kind of talk about the accomplishments and move forward. I think the 250th anniversary of the country, that's also helps and kind of is consistent with his theme, back from the inaugural and kind of the golden age. So all those mesh together. I think that the audience was almost more of kind of his own base of supporters to try to shore them up, and they made some slippage in some of the the polling on that. And so going back to a lot of some of the cultural issues and things, kind of help shore them up. But it was certainly very harsh on on Democrats, and kind of needs them for a lot of his most important signature legislation. But I think it'll be kind of tough to drag them along the finish line there. But looking at some of the data, it seemed like it was the speech was received well, and I don't know if it'll go in one of the most memorable ever. Certainly the longest. I think it did break history there, but definitely for him, hopefully the start of a kind of a reset where there was some some bad news and things he's trying to rebound from, the start of something that could be very beneficial for him politically as we head closer and closer to the midterm elections.
Yeah, his approval numbers have not been above 50% since about mid-October of last year. The polls that I follow have him at about 45, 46%. The ones that were accurate going into 2024, I don't trust all the polls out there. The ones that say he's underwater by 20 points, I don't subscribe to, because I think that they're not accurate. But having said that, if the approval rating is 45 or 46%, I don't think it jumps to 50%. I don't know if these speeches, no matter how well delivered, and I thought very Trumpian, very well delivered, had some humor, had a lot of different real Americans in the audience that he went to 12 or 15 times. I lost count. But in the end, these speeches don't really move the needle, do they?
No, many years ago, where there were 3 or 4 channels and there wasn't a lot of other options, then they probably were more significant. And I think Bill Clinton was one of the presidents that benefited the most during the height of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. He kind of showed that he could triangulate and still focus on the business of the people, and he did significantly improve by his speeches in 1988, 1999. But these days, while the audience size is still significant, and I don't think I've seen the numbers yet, but I would imagine somewhere between 35, 40 million people, and no other speeches get anywhere near that kind of thing. People just have so many ways to consume media, and they may pop in for a little bit, but they're likely off to other things, and the length of the speech may not help there. But not a 90-minute speech isn't going to reverse, kind of the first year of his presidency, but it could be the start of something, kind of turning the page. Being optimistic and looking forward. I think he's planning on doing some travel to Texas on Friday, and we'll talk about energy policy and maybe electricity prices with the affordability theme. And if he can garner some positive media cycles out of this in the coming days or weeks, and have some either policy wins or foreign policy successes, then that could cause some momentum that does help. And you talk about the numbers, that where the number is, whatever it is, really does matter for the midterm elections. The kind of around 45% could determine whether or not the Republicans can keep the House. And so things like that at the margin do matter as we head into a very important midterm election cycle.
Yeah, right now, again, the polls that I think are reasonably accurate show the Democrats generic ballot up 3 or 4 points. which is good for the Democrats, but it's not really out of that margin of where they need to be to break out with a 40-seat kind of midterm election, which happens on occasion. But the numbers right now don't seem to indicate that. You talk about 35 to 40 million people watching it, Aaron. This speech, the problem is it starts at 9 o'clock at night. People have jobs and kids and responsibilities. An hour and 40 minutes later, or whatever it turns out to be, and he's still going. It's 11 o'clock at night. A lot of people have tuned out. Because I thought the very end of his speech was really good. The problem is not 40 million people didn't see that, did they?
No, generally the first part of the speech is the one that gets the highest audience, and then people do tune out. But it'll depend. Sometimes the speech, if nothing else kind of happens, either domestically or internationally, it could be replayed over and over, and people consume it in different ways. They'll see clips on their phone, and it'll be on different social media platforms. So the things that went viral, you mentioned the guests. This is something that started with Ronald Reagan in 1982, and President Trump has kind of taken it to the extent of having a lot of guests, and those are the parts of the speech that are very bipartisan and uplifting. And so, if those get packaged into little clips, that's something that could be helpful. But I think people will definitely see highlights or excerpts in the coming days, unless something happens in Iran or something totally overshadows the speech, which has happened previously, especially with President Trump.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because obviously people consume media differently than when you were a kid or when I was a kid, and so social media. So for the president, I guess the good news would be there's no major gaffes here. He didn't go off script. He didn't, the Supreme Court. He could have taken charge. He didn't. He just slid by that, which could have been something they would highlight on social media. So I think that the folks on the left, the Democrats, are going to have a harder time finding nuggets to paint this in a bad light. It was a speech that was based on optimism in the future. And I'm going to guess that Susie Wiles is pleased because he stuck with the script for the most part, a couple deviations, but nothing major. So no minefields to clean up today. I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I think that's all right. I think that's all correct, and his staff is probably happy. The one I think thing you'll see repeated over and over is when he asked Democrats to stand, and they didn't. So I think that could end up being politically helpful for him. But yeah, no major gaps or anything. Treated the Supreme Court issue very deftly, and didn't make an issue there. You never want something else to distract from your overall message. So I think he'll take it and move on and hope to get some mileage out of this, and nothing else could stop.
Aaron Call, Director of Debate at the University of Michigan. Sir, always a pleasure. Aaron, thank you.
Anytime.
There you have it. We go to the experts and say, hey, what do you think? If you're teaching debate at University of Michigan, you might know a thing or two about it more than I do. Somebody who knows more about a lot of things than I do is Ivy. She's up next. Don't go anywhere. So I think that, Avi was watching the speech last night with one of our kids until he couldn't stay up anymore. And then I think Ivy cashed in too. See, that's the problem with these
I
speeches. You made the whole thing?
I did.
Oh, I thought, at one point you sent me a text, you were sleepy. I thought, well, she's not going to make it. Anyhow,
Well, when you
good
told me,
morning.
it was like, I think 10 to 11, and you said he was 10 pages into 16, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I did make it. What a great speech. I really, really liked the tone that he set. I loved that he was just hammering and torching the Democrats because, he would just say things and they would be remained seated. And the only thing that they stood for, everyone stood for, was because it didn't pass, or they didn't vote at all for the big, beautiful bill. And I'm like, guys, do you not realize that you look like fools?
Yeah, hey, Anthony, crank up Bite 16. Here's a little something for you from last night. Bite 16.
Nobody stands up. These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
That was in reference to the legislation that he had hoped to pass and asked Congress to pass, which is
I
you
understand.
cannot take your child away from the parents. You can't take the child away from the parents because they want to transition and the parents don't want them to transition for transgender surgeries. Because there was a young woman there that had happened to her, and what a frightening story. The state.
Well, I don't know if you heard me say it earlier. I was talking to Chloe Cole last night. She was there. I didn't do an interview with her, but I stood there and talked to her. One of the most famous now detransitioners. And she was there as a guest of a member of Congress. So this has become, look, the tide has shifted on that issue.
Yeah.
It really has.
Right. Well, you can't mutilate children and take them away from their parents and champion this as being the right thing to do.
Normal?
No, it's evil and horrible and
normal.
awful. No, it's awful.
It's butchery.
It is butchery. Anyhow, I love the 401ks for everyone, this government-backed 401k like plan that he mentioned.
$1,000.
I know we have been promoting our upcoming interview on Forgotten America, and that is, he was calling for to bar private equity from gobbling up homes. One of the big problems in the housing crisis that we have are these big private equity firms own thousands and thousands of homes, driving up the price, right?
We've talked about this, and here's why I believe they're doing it. Private equity is buying up those homes in that $300,000 to $500,000 range, which would be, a middle-class family home, right?
Right.
They're buying
correct
them
me
up
if I'm
because
wrong. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I think BlackRock is like one of the largest holders of single-family homes.
And State Street and these other private equity operations, these giant monolith, but they're buying up these homes because I think that they believe in the future. I've talked about this many times in this program, and I don't know that they're wrong. Based on, if the Democrats get in power, the Democrats think you're entitled to a free place to live. Well, if the government's paying the bill and BlackRock and State Street have 100,000 homes or whatever they have, and they know they're getting a guaranteed check, private equity is all about the cash flow. Everything else is kind of irrelevant. And we'll hear about that on Forgotten America with Tiffany Cianci. It drops Monday at 9 a.m. because she talks all about how private equity is really not focused on your safety or your kids' safety or the well-being of the community. They are focused on the bottom line, and I think that's what it is.
Yeah. I loved his comments there about Charlie Kirk and reminding that we are one nation under God. And also, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but there's been some the Department of Education issued a new guidance on prayer in schools, and it was it's tied to federal funding, which says that, hey, you cannot keep our children from praying in schools. We can't. You're not going as a school to endorse a religion, but you can't keep them from praying in school and things like that, which we've seen a lot of schools trying to keep that from occurring. So now it's in place and saying, hey, this is religious liberty.
Do they read the Constitution? The free exercise, the free
Exactly.
exercise thereof, the free exercise
Exactly.
of my religion as
Right.
I see fit. You know,
Right.
we can see 1,000 Muslims in Times Square shut down New York City on their prayer rugs, and
Right.
that's okay. But my kid saying a prayer in school, that's a problem. No, that's wrong.
It is wrong.
Just wrong.
But again, the president championing Christian rights, and I absolutely love that. And I would say too that why don't we get back to pledging allegiance every day before school starts? You know,
I think
I
most
remember.
schools
I
still
remember.
do.
Do they? Because I remember doing this as a kid every single day. Stand up to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America. I mean, you did that every day. And we need that because we need some cohesion among people. I don't have to agree with my neighbor on politics on everything. We could have diametrically opposed views. But we should be able to agree on the Pledge of Allegiance to this country, to America, to our greatness. And I think that's part of the theme of last night. I mean, to me, it was very optimistic.
Yeah.
Very optimistic.
I agree. On another note, I don't know if you've seen this either, but there has been a lot of documentation just released that the Georgia prosecutor, Fannie Mae?
Fannie Willis.
Fannie Willis, thank you. Fannie Mae is a lender. But she was working closely with the Biden DOJ and the J6 Democrats to, bring this prosecution against the president, or at the time, former presidents. But really quickly, documents obtained by Just the News and America First Legal show that Willis's team worked closely with Biden, Justice Department, White House, and Democrats on the committee as they pursued state charges against Trump and others. This is now in a memo. So proof once again that there was collusion to take out Donald Trump.
A coordinated attack is what it was. There's no question. Ivy, love you.
I love you too, Steve.
All right. Well, busy. I don't run really well on 3.5 hours of sleep, but we pulled it off. You know, it's whatever. I mean, Anthony runs on 3.5 hours of sleep all the time. Insomnia boy over there, right?
It's true.
True. I'm older, Anthony, by about 3 years than you are, so it's a little tougher on me.
You're 300.
But it was. Thank you. It was a good night. It was a good night. A chance to meet a lot of interesting people, talk to a lot of people. Some new people I talked to, like Senator Dan Sullivan of Alaska. We've got all those interviews. We're going to share some of that with you in the next couple of days. I couldn't get to it all today, obviously. Short night, short clock. But Byron Donalds, what a great member of Congress he is. He's also the leading candidate to be the next governor of the state of Florida. Just so smart and so sharp. And we were off camera and we laughed. I said, you know, I really enjoy watching you when you go on these big networks and you flame. He goes, yeah, CNN was dumb enough to invite me on again today. I said, really, how'd that go? He goes, I destroyed him. He's a big dude, too. He is. He played football, I think, for Florida. I was mentioning that to Anthony. And really sharp. His whole background is in finance. So when it comes to money and the economy and understanding how this works for the average American, he gets it better than probably 90% of the people in Congress, right? So I met a number of not new, but people that I hadn't met before, probably 6 or 8 new connections with members of Congress I interviewed and talked to. So those relationships are always good to build on. And the senator from Alaska, of course, he's got the best fishing state in the country, maybe the best fishing in the world in Alaska. So it's always good to have that guy on your roster, right? Yeah, so good conversation with him as well. Really appreciate you being here today. It's been a good deal of fun, and I appreciate you being here. Fight the good fight, keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is The Steve Gruber Show.